Hey, hey. Get started here in just a minute. Just gonna let a few, see if more people come in. Yo, Stacker Hacker. Get some tunes for while we wait for a few more minutes. Get started. If you want to come find the slides, they have this tiny URL link, developing-cln-plugins-p2. This is part 2. We did part 1 2 weeks ago, and last week Austin did a stream on making an LN URL pay endpoint. So today we'll be writing some CLN plugin code. Is that better on the music? And you guys are able to hear me all right? All right, cool. I am gonna get started here. So, like I said, I'll turn the music down. I'll just turn the music off. You don't need it. Yeah, this is my slideshow. So, you'll see stuff as I start going through it. So 2 weeks ago, like I said, I did a stream for part 1 of developing Core Lightning plugins, and so that was all just getting your developer environment set up. And so some things that we did were we got Bitcoin D installed and we got Lightning D installed. So what the end of that workshop led us to is we could start a Bitcoin node in regtest and get it started. And then now we can run Bitcoin CLI commands. And then we can also start up a Lightning node, and we went over using the startup regtest script. So that comes from if you clone the Lightning repository, you'll see in contrib there is this startup regtest script. But if you go to our GitHub, github.com/pleb-devs, you'll see I made a copy of it. So we can see here I have this startup regtest script. So I'll get into that after I kind of do a little primer on this slideshow. Yeah, the link is in the chat. So if you want to, I'm going to go through this slideshow, and then if you want to clone this repo, you can see I have a few things here. There's a README, which you should be able to kind of follow along with. I tried to make it just step by step, make it so you can copy and paste most of the commands and the code in. And then we're going to go through a few examples. These are all different instances of CLN plugins with different things that I want to show off. So we're going to start with the slideshow. So these slides are at tinyurl.com/developing-cln-plugins-p2. And they'll also, if you go to the repo, they're linked at the top of that README in the developing CLN plugins. Then there's a subdirectory building a plugin, and the slides are linked there as well. But these are just going to be some primers on. I already went over most of this last time we did a live stream, so the link is here. You can go to our YouTube channel to find that. And like I said, that was just going over getting your development environment set up, because in order to start building and testing plugins, you're going to need a Bitcoin D backend with at least one Lightning node to run the plugin on, but ideally a few more so that you can kind of simulate a real network. If you click on this link, you'll be taken to the repository. So this is for the environment setup, and so this should take you through all of that if you don't already have a Bitcoin and Lightning node running. And then we're going to be working out of this subdirectory, building a plugin. And like I said, this README is here that should take you through everything that you need. And that's what we're going to be going through for this workshop. And we also kind of covered a few Bitcoin CLI and Lightning CLI commands. I think those are at the bottom here. Yeah, you can see there's like L1 CLI get info, which will just give you some node info. All these CLI commands are also, let's see, if you go to docs.corelightning.org, you can find all of the Lightning CLI commands here. So these can just be kind of fun to mess around with. Most of them are prefixed, or they're all prefixed with Lightning, but you just run it like you'd run Lightning CLI and then the following command. So like Lightning CLI connect, and they're all documented here. And then you can also get the Bitcoin RPC commands. I always have to just look up that, and you'll get developer.bitcoin.org/references/RPC, and here's all of the Bitcoin CLI commands. And so these can be helpful for doing different things. We're gonna have to do some of these, like if we wanna fund first you need to fund your Bitcoin node. So you're gonna need to generate some blocks to the address, and that's something that we can do in regtest mode, is we can generate blocks. So if you want to generate blocks to an address, first you'll have to get a new address. That's somewhere in here, get new address. And so anyways, these can be kind of fun to go through and just mess around with your node and run these commands. And so for this workshop, it would be ideal if you have some understanding of the Lightning Network, kind of like the differences between on-chain and Lightning, an understanding of channels, invoices. We're really not going to do too much with this stuff, but it's just nice to know what you're working with. You're going to need some understanding of the Bitcoin and Lightning CLIs, at least one Lightning node in one Bitcoin backend. And then we're going to be using the pyln-client library. So if you have some knowledge of Python, that would be helpful, but it's all going to be pretty simple code. And also something interesting about plugins is you can write them in any language. So we're going to, it's everything, all the examples are going to be in Python, but you can kind of, there's other libraries. I know there's a Go library and a JavaScript library for building plugins, but you don't even need a library. I'll show you an example in Python that's not even using the library. So what even is a plugin? In general, a plugin is just some sort of software that adds feature or functionality to already existing software. So in this case, we are adding functionality to our Lightning node, but some examples could be browser extensions. So browser extensions can be thought of as browser plugins, like an ad blocker, password managers, or something like GetAlby, where it's integrated right into your browser, and now your browser has more functionality. VS Code extensions that add maybe like linting or auto completion, things like that, or even like a Minecraft mod could be thought of as a plugin, because you're adding extra software into the game, and now you have extra functionality within the game. And something interesting is that a lot of the CLN commands, so those RPC commands that we are looking at, a lot of them are built as plugins. So you'll see here we're in the Lightning repository, and all these files are so like these are some plugins. Like keysend is a command that you can run on your node, Lightning CLI keysend, and then you input the node ID. But that is built as a plugin. This one is in C. There's like Bolt 12 offers are a plugin. There's some more within these subdirectories, and then there's even more. And so these are the ones when you start your node, these just basically come with the node and get started up when you start your node automatically. But you can also add additional plugins. So here is an entire repository of community plugins, just different functionality that you might want to add to your node. One that's interesting and could come in handy at some point for you is this Sauron plugin that basically allows you to run Lightning without a Bitcoin backend. So if you want to run a Lightning node, but you don't have the entire Bitcoin chain synced, you can clone this. We'll go over later in the workshop how to start plugins, but the basic process would be you clone this file, sauron.py, and then like here's an example command. You run it on mainnet. You'll need to disable the BCLI plugin and use this plugin flag to start your node with the Sauron plugin. And then here is an example endpoint. You can point your Lightning node to the Blockstream Bitcoin backend. And so this means you don't need to have a full chain synced on your node. So there's just a bunch of interesting things. I haven't really gone through too much of these, but these are all plugins that will allow you to add functionality to your node. So a quick look at the CLN docs. We are already there. There's a link here. It's at docs.corelightning.org. And then this is from the plugin development docs. So in the docs, they say plugins are a simple yet powerful way to extend the functionality provided by Core Lightning. They are sub-processes that are started by the main Lightning D daemon and can interact with Lightning D in a variety of ways. So they're subprocesses, meaning they can be stopped and started individually from Lightning D, and then, like I was talking about, they'll add additional functionality. There's kind of a few different things that they can do. They can add CLI command pass through, so that basically adds CLI commands. They can add JSON RPC command pass through, so if you want to, this is basically like you can make RPC requests to your node, which is similar to CLI, but it's not from the command line. And then there's subscriptions and hooks. And so subscriptions are basically like allow certain events to trigger something else on your node. So like when an event happens, then you can execute a certain block of code. An example is invoice paid. So you issue an invoice to someone, and normally when someone pays the invoice, your node is just like, cool, we got more funds. But if you want to issue a specific or execute a certain set of code when an invoice is paid, you can do that with a plugin. And subscriptions are non-blocking, so they basically just like when an event happens on your node, it just notifies the plugin and is like, hey, this event happened. And then the plugin can continue to do its thing, but it doesn't really affect the node in any other way. But then there's hooks that are blocking, meaning an event happens and then you can inject or alter the behavior of certain events. And so like that event won't be completed until your code has completed. So we're not really gonna look at hooks. We're gonna add some CLI and JSON RPC commands, and we're gonna subscribe to an event once we start writing our plugin. Again, this is from the plugin docs, from A Day in the Life of a Plugin. You can write plugins in any language. In the basic architecture is Lightning D sends a request to your plugin's standard input and expects a response from your plugin's standard output. And in order for a plugin to be initialized, you need to respond to these two requests. Before your plugin can be fully registered with Lightning D, you need to respond to this get manifest request and this init request. So like I was saying, we're going to go over a plugin that doesn't use the library, and so we'll kind of get to see a little bit of this. But we can look here at from A Day in the Life of a Plugin. This is the get manifest method. And let's see. So the node will send a request for get manifest with maybe a little bit of information in it, and then your plugin must return a JSON object similar to this example. So you can see like we do a few things. We name the plugin. We add RPC methods. So here's one RPC method with the name of hello, another RPC method with the name of get time. And so these are similar, or these are like commands that you can pass to the command line, and it will execute whatever code is defined for get time. These are subscriptions. So whatever events you want to subscribe to, you have to tell Lightning D that you want to subscribe to for this example, connect and disconnect events. You can tell it which hooks you want to listen for. And yeah, so that's pretty much that. And then there's the init method. Let's see. The init method will this is the response. You get some information. I think this is the init method. This is the init request. Like Lightning D sends this JSON object to your plugin, and so then you can get some information like the lightning deer, which is what you need to execute RPC commands and like information like what network you're on and all of that, so that you can use that information in your plugin. So let's build a plugin. We're not really gonna build anything super awesome. I'm gonna kind of show you all the tips and tricks for developing plugins, and at the end of the day, you're just writing Python. So like once you kind of get the structure of it, then you can make a plugin do whatever you want. So my goal is just to kind of like get you to that point of understanding how plugins work and how to build them. But then once you're there, then pretty much sky's the limit. So we're gonna go to the README here and start going through that. So you're gonna need, this is not completely necessary, but from whatever directory you're working out of, I'd recommend activating a virtual environment. And this will just kind of like separate everything that you're doing with Python and anything that you install away from the rest of your global state on your machine. So I am just going to be working out of this repository. So you can see I'm already in here, and I've already ran this first command. Let me see if I can clean this up a little. So I've already ran this first command, virtual env vnv. So basically this kind of just initializes your virtual environment. So you can see I have, or actually we're up one, but I have this virtual environment directory. So I'll go up there, and now, so that's basically that directory gets created, and now we can activate our virtual environment by running this activate script that lives inside of that VNV directory. So it should work. I think that this theme that I'm using, I don't know, I was messing around with those this morning and changed it. Normally you should see like a little VNV, it'll show like, it'll look like this. And you can also check by saying which Python, and you'll see now that the Python version that I'm targeting lives in this VNV file. And so that's all good. And now we'll need to install the pyln-client library. So that's what we're going to be using to basically streamline the building of plugins. So you can use pip install pyln-client, and should already have it installed, but it'll install if not. And so now we can start our regtest environment. So this is something that we went over in the last workshop. Let's see if I can zoom in on here for you guys. So this startup regtest script. Let's see, how do I zoom out? Is the question. We went over it in the last workshop. You'll need, if you don't have C Lightning and Bitcoin D installed, then this startup regtest script will not work because it relies on those two programs, but it lives in the, well, okay, I made a copy of it in this building a plugin directory, but you can also find it in, I just copied it from here, from the Lightning repository. it's in contrib / startup regtest. So I just copied that over so that it's easier for you guys to get to. Where am I? So yeah, this is not the right. There we go. So we can start our regtest environment simply with this script. So we can say, first you need to run source, which will just kind of load all the functions and variables that get defined in this script. So we need to go into here. And so this will have some output. It says useful commands. It'll also tell you which directory is being targeted, or like which Lightning D binary is being targeted, and which Lightning CLI binary is being targeted. So if you have these installed, then these paths should make sense. And then here we have start LN, so this will start our Lightning network. If we want, we can use this quick command for connecting two nodes. We can fund them. We're not really going to go through any of those. We're just going to use this to, it'll default to 2 nodes. So let's see, where are we here? Yeah, we can just start LN. And sometimes it'll just start up, or sometimes you might need to do some things, but looks like it started up perfectly, and it created this Bitcoin wallet with a name of default. So we can see, we can use BT. So you'll see it defines some aliases for us. Let's see that. So we can say alias L1 CLI, and this will show us basically whenever you run L1 CLI, it's actually running lightning CLI -- lightning deer, and then it's targeting this in our temporary directory / L1 - regtest, and then we can see L2 CLI is pretty much the same, except for it's targeting the L2 - regtest, and we can see alias BT CLI is just running Bitcoin CLI in regtest mode. And we'll see here we have these 2 directories that got created when we ran start LN. We can also verify that all of that worked by running L1 CLI get info. And so this should give us our node info. You can see we're synced to the Bitcoin D backend in regtest. I've been using this one, so we're at 590 blocks. And we can check that by running get blockchain info and see Bitcoin D is also at 590 blocks. So now we're going to need to start. If we want to build a plugin and test it, we'll need to be able to start them on our node. So we can use the plugin start command because our Lightning node is already running. So we can just use this plugin start, but you can also do something like with the Eye of Sauron plugin, where you say lightning D, so this is the startup command, and then you would say -- plugin equals whatever path to your plugin. But our node is already running. Another option is you can go into your Lightning node's configuration file and specify plugins there. But we're going to want to be stopping and starting anyways. So to test this out, we'll use this hello world.py. And maybe I'll open this up so we can see it. One second here. So really simple. We'll go through all of this. But basically we're importing, well actually I'm not even gonna, we don't need to go through any of that. We'll go through that later when we actually start writing our own plugin. But it'll basically look similar to this, and you can see here we specified this hello method. So what we can do is say, well, maybe we should say L1 CLI plugin list, and here you can see all of the plugins running on our node, and now we can run L1 CLI plugin start and then the path to our plugin. So this is in my current working directory, so I'm going to print that and then say hello world.py. So this will basically start whatever file is in, or whatever file's at that path. And something important to know or note is that this first line here, this is called a shebang, and this basically tells, whenever you run this script, it tells the script interpreter which like how do you know which, like, to interpret all of this, like what language is this, how do we execute all of this stuff in here. So here I have passed it the path to the Python that I want to use, and I want to use the Python in my virtual environment that I just activated. So if I run again which Python, then it will show me this path. So if you have Python installed anywhere, run which Python and then just copy this path into here. And this instance of Python is the one that we installed the pyln-client library, so it's important that that's the one that we're using. So now we can, again, run this command and start it. And now you'll see we have an additional plugin here at hello-world.py. And so now what we can do is run L1 CLI hello, and it'll output hello world. Or if we wanted to pass an argument, we could say hello plebs. So now we know how to start a plugin using the plugin start command. And also, if you want to know how I knew that, it should be here. You can find plugin as a RPC method down here somewhere. Plugin. And then it has a subcommand, and so the subcommand options are start, stop, start dir, rescan, and list. So yeah, so now what's next? Now we have started it, and if you want to make any changes to the plugin, then you're gonna need to restart it. So like we could go in here and say that it's gonna say hello, but if we run this, it'll still say hello plebs, and that's because we didn't restart it. So we'll need to say plugin stop and then the file name of the plugin, and then now if we start it again, we can run hello, and it'll say hello world. So anytime you make a change, you're going to need to restart the plugin. It'd be nice if we could do that automatically, right? So there's a script in this directory for restarting plugins. So basically this script just stops and starts the plugin with some other optional information in here. So here this variable, you're going to need, if you want to use this script, you're going to need to specify the file that you want to stop and start. So this line here should change the directory of this, like when you're executing this script, it'll make like the current directory that this script is executing in the directory that this script exists in, if that makes sense. So like, say I was up here in the root and I ran /building a plugin / restart plugin, then this line will change the working directory into here, so that then when this gets ran, it'll print basically like the developing CLN plugin / building a plugin. So all you should need to change is this, but the script will also echo that plugin path, so you can verify that, or you could just, if you want, put in the whole absolute path. This takes an optional argument from the command line. It'll default the node number to 1, but if you want to specify which node to start it on, because remember, we just started with 2 nodes, but you could start with 5 or whatever, so depending on which node you want to test on, you can pass a number after the script. I'll show you that in a second, to then say which lightning deer you want. Do you want L1, do you want L2, etc. And this will just give you an error if you input a number, or if that doesn't exist, or if you haven't started any of your nodes, or if they're running in a different directory. And then, like I said, this will just say if, where is the start command? Oh, here. So yeah, this will say, this basically looks, when you run plugin list, this will look to see if that plugin's already started. If it has, it'll run plugin stop. Otherwise, it'll just start it. So what we could do is make a change to hello world.py. I don't know what to say, but we could change back to hello. And now we can run restart plugin. It'll say, like I said, it outputs that file that it's restarting. And now we can run hello. And it looks like it didn't restart it for some reason. That's because we need to change this to the correct file that we want to target. And now we can run that script. What's going on here? My terminal's frozen for a second. Run that script, and now we can run this command again. And it'll give us back to hello. But you'll notice if we run L2 CLI hello, unknown command. So if we want to start it there, we can run restart plugin, but on node 2. So this will target that L2 regtest. So it's restarted, and now we can run L2 CLI. So that script is handy, makes it so that you don't have to run stop and start. But it would be even better if this could be more automatic. Basically, anytime your file changes, you just want this restart script to automatically run. So if you've done any like development in Node.js, this would be something like NodeMon, where anytime you save a file and it changes, then your server automatically restarts. So I'm sure there's other ways to do this, but the way that I know how to do it is with the enter command, ENTR. So we'll need to install that, and hopefully I put my password in. Nope. should already be installed anyways, but well, whatever. It's already installed. I have a hard time typing passwords. So we can run, once you install enter, then we can run this, and we're gonna want to do this in a different in a different terminal, because this terminal is going to be dedicated to just running this command. So if we say, we'll need to make sure we are in the directory that we want to watch for changes, if that makes sense. Like, so the plugins that, or the files that we'll be changing are going to be in here. And so we want to make sure that we're in the right directory, so that when we run ls, it outputs the file that we want to watch. And so now we can run ls and then use this enter -s. And so now whenever a file changes, we want to run this restart plugin script. So you'll see there's an output there. We have that path set to hello world. And so now if we change this back to, we can maybe change this, and you'll see we got another output. It ran that script again because we saved that file. So now if we go back here, we can see, well, we just ran this, right, with like this, no additional arguments, so we're just defaulting to node 1. So now when we run L1 CLI hello, the default message is hello plebs. All right, so what we've done so far is we've basically spun up our Bitcoin node and 2 Lightning nodes, and now we're using this restart plugin script in order to automatically stop and start plugins on our nodes, so that anytime we make changes, those take effect. So now we're gonna go and check out this this other plugin here, basic plugin, and I copied pretty much all of this except for these additional printout statements from Tony Alden's website, lnroom.live. He does some really great, he has a lot of videos, but a lot of them are on plugins. So this was one of his first ones, and I've learned a lot from Tony. He makes really great videos with good documents explaining them after the fact. So I got this one from this understand CLN plugin mechanism with a Python example. So if you really want to go more in depth into how plugins are working, I recommend this video. There's also a link. Maybe, did I put the link? Yeah. Wait. Maybe I didn't. The link's at the top of there, and I will, after this, put it into this README as well. But if you just go to lnroom.live, you'll see all of his videos, and you can kind of start from the beginning and go through all of them. He's got a ton of resources, kind of going more in depth onto each of the things. He also talks about the pyln-client library, how to write tests. So definitely, if this is something that you're interested in, I recommend digging more into Tony's resources. So we're just going to briefly go over what he did here. So this is just like a whatever vanilla Python file here. So we're using some some libraries that come with Python, but we're not using the pyln-client library. And here is this printout function, which you can use anytime you want to print out anything in this file, and it'll print it to /temp/plugin out. So that's where we'll look in a minute for these results. But also you can change this if you want it to output somewhere else. And so basically, like I said, Lightning D sends a request to your plugin for the manifest. So the first request is the get manifest request. And so we can use this module to read that line in. Here you'll see that it also sends a new line, so we need to read that new line in. And then here what I'm doing is just printing out that request with some more formatting for us. So let's just comment all this out for now. And let's change this to basic plugin. And again, because we're looking for changes within this entire directory, it should just restart that plugin because we changed this file. And we can look at the logs. So we use l1-log, which is another alias that startup regtest script gives us. And we'll see if we just say this, it's kind of overboard. So if we do l1-log, and then we can grep for the plugin name. So I'll just say basic, and then we only care about the last of that. So here we got two outputs from the plugin manager. One, plugin manager started this plugin, and this is the one that we wanted. But then it said killing plugin, exited before replying to get manifest. And so you'll see here that basically Lightning D sent this request, and then we just said bye. We printed this out, and that was it. So Lightning D doesn't like that. It wants to know, it wants that response from us. But what we can do just really quick to see what that was. Let's see. Maybe I can do something a little nicer. If I can, I'll try. We can say cat that file temp/plugin out. Pass that to JQ from JSON. There. So this is the response. This is the get manifest method. So this is what Lightning D sent to our plugin. Not really much. It's basically saying like we're not allowing deprecated APIs. This is something you can set in your Lightning config, and it tells us that the method is get manifest. So now that's cool. We got the get manifest, but our node doesn't like that. So now let's uncomment all of this, and we can get the request ID. So that came from here, because basically like when we respond, Lightning D wants to know what we're responding to. So we respond with that ID, and we say that this is our manifest. So I was showing you that from the docs that had a lot more options on here, but this is just very basic manifest where it's saying that we're responding to that request ID. And then we're just kind of specifying options and which RPC methods there are. And so then we write that out. So we write the manifest to the plugin's std out. And so if we do all this, but comment this part out, then basically we got the manifest, we created the manifest, and now we are responding to it. So we should see, if we go in the logs again, that we started it, and then it's killing the plugin because this time it exited before replying to init. So we got past the manifest, but now we need to reply to init, and that's what happens down here. So then basically Lightning D sends another request, we read that in, and we get that as the request. And looks like I didn't go far enough maybe to respond to it. But here we'll see what the request is. We can probably do this again. What is that? And let's comment this out. And then run this command again. So basically we're outputting the plugin and then we're passing it to JQ, which is just a JSON parser. And so here is the init method. So it looks pretty similar to what we saw in the docs. I think that the most important thing here is this this lightning deer. This is because we're on L1, so it's targeting that. And then it's telling us where our lightning RPC is. So with this, we're able to execute commands. Like we could run this lightning CLI get info, but we can use it, and also we'll see this is the same lightning deer. But we can use that within our plugin to run RPC commands, which is nice. So that was just a little primer on what's happening in the background with plugins, and you'll see also because I didn't get, we're not responding to the init method, so it's still killing the plugin before replying to init. But we can fix that. We could respond, or we can just go into the pyln-client library, and that makes everything that much easier. Another thing, if you want, is this. So we could say watch -n. This is basically every second we are re-outputting the file. So here, that's why I use JQ, because it's not totally understandable, but anytime we use printout, it'll print out to plugin out. So it's kind of nice to, like, you can see if I uncomment this stuff, it'll restart the plugin and run it and then output this. And so if we want to debug things, we can see all that here. All right. What is next? Using pyln-client. That will basically make it so that you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Make everything a lot simpler. So we will do that. Let's see. Let's just make another plugin, and we will call it another plugin. And so basically we need to, it's all pretty simple. We need to import it. And first, actually, we need to specify the path to our Python. So I'll get that from from this one here. This is just telling Lightning D how do I run this program. And then we should have already installed pyln-client. So we're going to import the library. And then, so we imported plugin, and now we need to create a new instance of that plugin. And pretty much that's it. We need to actually left this out of the steps, but these are the last two steps. We run plugin.init and then plugin.run. And so you'll see we went from, basically this is doing the same thing. We went from 4 lines of, or however, 50 whatever lines of code to like 4 right here. So all of the tricky stuff that's going on in the background gets abstracted away by the pyln-client library. So let's see what happens if we run this. So we need to change in here. We need to change the plugin path to another plugin. And this mutes this line right here, mutes the output, but I want us to see that, I think. Yeah, so it ran it again because we saved, but you'll see we got this error, permission denied. This file, another plugin.py, is not executed, or is not executable. So this is something that you might run into, also if you're making like shell scripts or anything like that. So how we can fix this is by making it executable. So we say, we use this chmod, and we add x to make it executable, and then we say another plugin.py, and see if I can do my password this time. And so now it'll need to, we didn't save anything, right? So this doesn't run again, but if we just do that, then now you'll see that output, we successfully started the plugin. How do I get back? All right. So let's see. We have basically done, we've created a plugin. Nothing, it's not doing anything yet, but we can grep for another plugin, and we'll see it didn't kill it this time. It just started it. And so we actually wanted to do something though. So we can add a method. We can use a Python decorator. Basically, so when we say at, that is, we're decorating our function with that. So like we're decorating this function with this plugin.method function that comes with the pyln-client library. So what that means is, see, it already knows what I'm doing, but so I called this another plugin because everything that we're doing here can also be found in my plugin if you want to see the finished product. But I'm just going to call this my plugin. So we're basically saying we want to create a new method, and we want to call that method my plugin, or maybe we want to call it my plugin test to make sure that the plugin is working. And so now, so this is just saying we're defining a new method. But now, what do we want to happen when when my plugin test gets called, we want to call this my plugin test function. So if you do these triple quotes and say this method tests the plugin, that basically like adds it as a description when you look at the description for that plugin, or for this method, I mean. So you should have something. This is basically like the docs for this method. And whenever you run my plugin test, it will just return this message with an optional parameter of foo, and we default that to bar. So you can see here, it should have restarted it. Looks like we got an error here, but we can check to make sure it's still going. Let's see. It exited before replying to init. Why did it do that? A method with that name is already registered by plugin, my plugin. So we could solve this by stopping that plugin, which I will do. So we can say L1 CLI plugin stop my plugin.py, and now we should successfully start that plugin. Okay, so now we can run, if it started correctly, we can run L1 CLI my plugin dash test, and it outputs just that. And then it says the option you specified is bar. We didn't specify any option, but this is a optional argument. So we could say this, and then we could say here, and this the option you specified is opt. So basically, like this allows you to pass whatever arguments you want to this command or this method. So you can kind of do anything you want here. Like I said, we're not gonna like build any crazy plugin or anything, but we got to the point where you can make it so that we can run my plugin test from the command line, or you could also do it through the JSON RPC interface and run. You could run any code that you want, really, with this my plugin test. And so maybe something cool to do would be, say, plugin dot method my plugin info. And so what we're going to do with this is we're going to use the this RPC command. So if we do L1 CLI get info, then you can see we get an output there. So what we want to do is be able to run that RPC method from inside our plugin. So what we will do, say this is returning info about the node, and we need to say node info equals plugin. So here we're passing the plugin that we initialized into this function, plugin.rpc. And so this, remember when we were looking at the init method, it output that lightning directory and the RPC file. So this RPC is using that to then execute RPC commands. And then it has, pretty sure they have all, at least I haven't found any RPC commands from the docs that aren't in this library. So you can use this get info. And let's see, we're gonna need to probably format it, but let's try this. L1 CLI plugin info. Bam. Let's see if I can move this. So we kind of recreated the get info command, but you can see we can run any RPC command from within here. So what if you wanted to get an invoice? You could say invoice equals, what's the, does this tell us? I feel like it's, well, let's look at the docs. So usually it translates over pretty well. If we look at the docs and we want to create invoice. So here is the RPC method, create invoice, and it accepts a few arguments: invoice string, label, and pre-image. And you can see here it kind of, this is the return value. Here it tells you more. But I think maybe we need to label it. Let's just try this. RPC dot create invoice 1000 sats and my label. Let's see if this works. Return invoice. So let's run that again. Error code message unknown command create invoice. So this is where you need to know what they called the RPC method. Maybe it's invoice. Let's try that. Let's see. It autofilled all of those things. I don't know if it knows what it's talking about. But either way, I think you get point. So here it created an invoice for us. And so then we could take this invoice and maybe we want to do something else, return more information or do something with invoice before we actually return anything. So you can kind of do whatever you want within this function, and you have access to all of these CLI commands, which is pretty awesome. So now the final thing that we are going to do is subscribe to events. So we have this, we can use this decorator to add methods, but we can also subscribe to events. So let's see, I think there's a link here, different events. In the docs, in the plugin docs, you'll see event notifications. So these are different events that you can subscribe to. You can see all of them here. We can go through a few, like one is channel open. Let's see, an interesting one you can subscribe to, whether or not like a connect or disconnect event happens. But I think that these two probably are the most interesting, invoice payment and invoice creation, because a lot of times, like, I've thought about this before with building Bitcoin applications. Like, it's not really all that exciting. All you can do is send and receive payments. And if that's all that you're doing, you probably want to make it more exciting by modifying what happens when you're sending and receiving payments. So you can modify what happens when an invoice is received. Um, so this could be an interesting project for you to try. Austin did that workshop last week on making an LNURL pay endpoint. So you could mix that with, like, with that LNURL pay endpoint. You make a request to a URL and then you get an invoice in return. And so in that process, this invoice creation event would be fired. And if you wanna do something like, I'm pretty sure someone made a plugin to send themselves a DM on Noster whenever this event was fired. So that could be fun. Or like maybe you want to know just every time someone is requesting an invoice from you, from your node. So then you could send yourself a DM on Noster whenever this invoice creation event is fired. What else is there? There's send pay success and send pay failure. So anytime like you're trying to pay someone and it succeeds, maybe you want to get notified every time that happens, so that you know that someone's not spending your funds without your knowledge. Or like maybe you don't just want to get notified. Maybe you actually want to do something when you get a payment for an invoice. Like, what if you're operating a shop and you have certain expenses and you know that you have to buy 1,000 coffee cups a month. So as soon as, like, anytime an invoice is paid, you could check your balance of your node, and if your balance exceeds a certain amount, then you're like, okay, I haven't bought cups this month, now I have enough money to buy cups. Automatically make an API call to some server and place an order for cups. So like I said, really, sky's the limit. We're gonna keep it simple though, and use this block added event. So we will, I'm pretty sure I put that all in here. Yeah, so we will just use another decorator, plugin.subscribe, and the event that we want to subscribe to is block added. And now what do we want to happen when a block gets added, or when that event is received? So block on block. I think I was messing around with the connect function, so I left that here. That's why I called it on connect. But so we need to pass the plugin and the block, and then this is like any additional arguments that get sent by this event. And we can say plugin.log event received, and then let's just format that block. So now we have this my plugin test method, and we're subscribed to blocks being added. So maybe every 100 blocks you want to place an order for cups or something like that. So let's see. Did I not put a colon? On block? Yeah, I did. It just let's just make sure it's running. And it's not, probably because this error, but that looks fine. Oh yeah, and I should say we are using this plugin.log. This log function comes with the plugin class, and that will just output whatever you want to, or it'll only output strings. So if you tried, that's why you have to use this format, but you can output any string you want to that node's logs. So another option, like if you're using, probably this would just be good if you want like it to show up in your logs, but something better for debugging is like what I showed in here is this printout function, because then you can like watch that file and it just makes it a little bit easier rather than having to check your logs every time. But what we can do is log and figure out why it's not running. So looks like it did start. I guess let's just try this again. Yeah, so it looks like we're good. I don't know why. It says that it exited. But we can, that's why we made this plugin test method. So it does work. For some reason we just didn't get any other output. And so something maybe that we want to do is, before I show you how the block added event works, maybe I think we can say we can do this. We can turn this into a decorator. And now what do we want to happen when the plugin gets initialized? Maybe we just log another plugin got initialized. And we can, I think here, if we wanted to set special options or any configuration, we can pass that to the init function, and that like gets all sent in the manifest. But for now, we just want to know that the plugin was initialized. So now, hopefully, that didn't work. I don't understand why it's running, but it's not telling us that it started or anything like that. Plugin.log o1-log. Just look at all of the logs. Maybe was I grepping for the wrong grep basic? That's why. So here we grep for another plugin there. Then we will see all of it starting, but then we also get this output that the plugin was initialized. So this could be useful for a number of things, like if you want maybe load some information from a database or do some sort of initialization that's required for your plugin, that can happen on this plugin.init. So now if we look at the logs, we just got that init message, but we are subscribed to blocks being added. So we can use Bitcoin CLI to generate one block. And so that's the output there. And it takes a second, but then we should see in the logs event received, and then that output of that event. And so something that I was struggling with yesterday, I really haven't used too many of the subscriptions. The only subscription that I've actually used is the invoice payment. I think that's the one, invoice payment. Yeah, every time an invoice is paid. So something that I don't totally understand, and I was looking briefly at the code, and there's not really much in the docs, is that it seems, at least when I was doing this yesterday, it seems that it matters what you name this variable. So we'll see if this works. If I change that to event, which I don't totally understand, we'll see plugin initialized. And now if we generate a new one, and wait a second, see, we get this type error. It says that we're missing a required argument, and then it's saying event. And so I couldn't really figure out, like, how do you know what to call that variable? And it's even interesting because in the docs they have an example using the connect method, and what they pass in there doesn't even work. So if we go to, we need to find contrib, and then here's the documentation for pyln-client, and here's some examples. Let's see, plugin.subscribe to connect, and then it's saying this is how we define this. So I'm gonna copy this in, and we can look at the connect event, and I don't think it'll work. So if anyone figures this out, let me know so that I can update the README, or if I figure it out, I'll update the README and probably ping the Discord. But let's look at this real quick. So basically we're just doing the same thing. We're logging that event, and here we'll need to, we can see that it was initialized, but in order for that event to get fired, we need to connect to L1. So, and I'll enable, in order to do that, we'll need this ID, and so then we can make L2 connect, and then we need to pass in this node URI, which is the node's pub key, or also its ID, and then we need to say at the host, which these are both on localhost. This could be also a website, like, I don't know, whatever, PlebDevs.com, and then the port that it's running on. So in this case, also, I'm getting this information from here. So this would work also, but this localhost maps to that IP address, and then this port is 7171, and I'm just gonna do this, show you this, see if I can get it to work, and then probably show you the invoice payment event real quick, and then we'll be done. So we connected, and now again we get this type error, and so I don't know what the issue is, because I even copied this from here, but like, something interesting is, I'm just telling you everything that I figured out so that maybe you can figure it out, because like, event doesn't work, but if we say we can just log, well, this won't even matter, but we can delete this stuff. And how I figured out that this one should be block is if you delete all the arguments and add a block, generate one. It'll take a second, but we can see it was initialized, and then it'll take a second for it to pick it up. And now we have a different error, and this one is got an unexpected argument block, and an unexpected keyword argument block, and so then I was like, okay, I should try block. And so that works for block added, but if we do connect and do the same thing, we end up getting ID. Like that unexpected keyword that it gives us is ID. But then if I remember, it even says something more confusing. So I guess this is what we get for being PlebDevs. But if any of you plebs smarter than me know why this is, let me know. So in order to refire the connect event, we will need to disconnect. And now we can connect again. And now it's saying got an unexpected keyword argument direction. Okay, I'm just gonna try this one more time and then I'll be done. I think we don't need to go over the invoice payment because it's pretty much the same thing. It's just whenever an invoice is paid, then the event gets fired. Disconnect and reconnect. Look at the logs in a second. Okay, here. Maybe we needed ID and direction. Let's just do both of these. All right, I promise. I'm almost done. Plugin is initialized. Disconnect and reconnect. Look at the logs. Yeah, so I'm really not sure why this is not working. But like I said, let me know and I will let you know if I figure it out. I don't understand because this is in the README, but I will tell you that if you want to use invoice creation or invoice payment, then I know that this works. Maybe I'll just show you so that I can know that I know. So we can subscribe to invoice payment, and if you do it just like this with invoice payment, then you should get the invoice ID. So we will need to, in order to pay an invoice, oh, maybe I'll regret this, but that's okay. We'll need to first fund our nodes. So this is getting into more than I realized, but that's okay. Because you'll probably want to do some of this stuff if you're, most of the plugins, like I was saying, like you'll want to be able to trigger things when you receive or send money. So what we'll need to do is first, let's see, we can say Bitcoin CLI get wallet info. We have 13,000 regtest Bitcoin, so we're rich there. And so now we will need to get a new address for L2 because we're creating this plugin on L1, so we want to pay an invoice on L1. So in order to do that, we'll need to open a channel from L2 to L1. So we got L2's address, and now we can say BT CLI send to address, and because we only have one wallet loaded, we don't need to specify it. But if you have multiple wallets loaded, you'll need to use a flag to specify where you send it. But we can say, is it this? Or is it the other way around? Okay, there's the transaction ID. So we just sent it, but it hasn't been mined into a block yet. So just to make sure it's really in there, we will generate 10 blocks. And now we can say list funds. And we have one UTXO for 1 Bitcoin, or whatever, 1,000, 100 million sats. So now we need to fund a channel. So let's see if we're still connected. In order to open a channel, first you need to have a peer. So we do have this peer. And let's see how we do this. Channel. I need to do this. Fund channel. How do I... Maybe fund channel was wrong. Pretty sure. Fund channel. And then we do the ID and the amount that we want to fund the channel with. And everything in Lightning. Okay, I guess funding a channel is in Satoshis. But pretty much everything else is going to end up being in millisatoshis. So we'll do L2 CLI fund channel. That node L1's ID, and then the amount that we want to send, or that we want to open the channel for. So let's try 103, 1, 2, 3, and that is missing a fee, but I still want to show you this. It's not going to work. Amount exceeded this many sats, and you'll see that here too. Basically, like if you want to you can enable wombo channels, which will allow you to do that, or you can just open a channel for this amount or less. So we'll just do that. We'll open it for exactly this amount. And now the channel is opened, or the opening transaction has been broadcast. And now we need to check this out. We have no channels, even though we just sent that. I think if we do list peers, well, okay, let's generate 1 block. See what happens. I thought it would show me. There we go. So basically, I thought that there would be some output before, but basically, like your transaction needs to get your funding transaction needs to get enough confirmations before it registers as a channel. So I guess they must have updated the output, because now it's a lot more organized. Now it just shows you number of channels is 1. So we have 1 channel. And so what we can do now, we should already be subscribed, right, to invoice payment. And so this is running on L1. So if we want to pay an invoice, we did that from the plugin, but we'll need to do create invoice. Let's do 1,000 sats, and we need a label and the pre-image, which could be anything. Okay. I don't think that I should have to specify that. The pre-image is the pre-image to supply upon successful payment of the invoice. So do we need to get a pre-image? Is there maybe another? Fetch invoice. No, this is using from bolt 12. Okay, so here this is just a regular invoice. So the other way is if we wanted to create an invoice with a specific pre-image, we could use create invoice. But if we want to just have our node create a random pre-image for us, then we can use this invoice command. So we'll do L1 CLI invoice, and we need to pass it amount millisatoshis. So 1 millisatoshi, or 1 satoshi is 1,000 millisatoshis. So we'll say 1,000 satoshis, label, and description. These could just be any string. And now we have an invoice that can be paid, created by L1. So let's make sure our plugin is still running before we do this. Okay, so our plugin is all good to go. And we copy that invoice. So now I think we use pay, L2 CLI pay, and then the invoice. And we'll see status complete. And here we'll see that we got the output, received invoice payment of the amount. This is the pre-image that we got, and this was the label. So yeah, like now we know that we just got paid 1,000 sats. So maybe every single time we get paid, we want to donate half of that to OpenSats or something like that. So then every time we get paid, then we could trigger another payment. Like we could do, if we wanted to do something weird, we could do get info. So we're going to copy L2's node ID. And now on invoice payment, we can say plugin.rpc.keysend, and then what we'll do, so let's see what got output here. We got MSAT. So this is the amount of MSAT that we got. So let's see if this works. We can say keysend. See how the keysend works. I know I said I was almost done like 20 minutes ago, but I got carried away. Keysend, destination, and amount MSAT. So the destination will be the node ID, and the amount will be invoice payment at MSAT divided by 2. And let's see if if this works. So we can go L2 CLI list pays. Okay, so here we can see all of the pays that L2 has made. L1 CLI list pays, 0 pays. So if let's create another invoice without a duplicate label. And let's try to pay it. L2 CLI pay. And let's look at our logs. Yeah, so that is because msat is string. I'm not gonna go through this now. I think I've gone on long enough, but I think it's because this invoice payment at msat is a string and not an int. And so we would need to parse out that number and convert it to an int, and then we could divide it by 2. And then what this would end up doing is anytime we receive an invoice payment, then we would pay L2, we would key send to them half of what we just got paid. So I don't know why we would want to send them back half of what they got, of what they paid us, but it is an option. So that's all. I think I put at the bottom here. Yeah, so this was finishing up. I put this final note. I don't know why with the plugin. If you figure it out, send us a message in the Discord. See what you can build with some plugins. Or another good challenge could be to go to that. Let's see. I think the link is here. Community plugins. That's in /lightningd/plugins. Another good challenge. Pick one of these that you might be interested in. Like I'm curious what this Nostrify one is, and see if you can get that plugin running on your node. So that is pretty much it. Yeah, join our Discord if you have any questions or just want to stay involved. If you guys want to come back to this live stream or you didn't catch the beginning of it, it will be posted on our YouTube channel at PlebDevs. And also these slides again are at tinyurl.com/developing-CLN plugins-p2. So hope y'all enjoyed. See you next time.